Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Wednesdays with Larawana. Every Wednesday, right here on CannaWannaBuy.com, we bring you the latest information on recreational and medical marijuana from all over the globe. This week, 5 myths about medical marijuana. This is from Refinery29.com, written by Sarah Jacoby. At this point, marijuana is legal for medical use in nearly half of the country. But David Casseret, MD, author of the recently released book Stoned, A Doctor's Case for Medical Marijuana, wants to clear up a few things. Initially skeptical of marijuana's medicinal value, Dr. Casseret waded through the evidence and spoke to patients and even tried the drug firsthand to figure out if the hype was warranted. A year and a half later, he's confident that marijuana has medicinal value, even though we have a lot to learn about it. Below, Dr. Casseret busts a few of the biggest marijuana misconceptions that are currently out there. Number 1, myth: medical marijuana always gets you high. There are 2 main ingredients in marijuana. One is tetrahydrocannabinol, THC. The other is cannabidiol, CBD. There are dozens of others, but those are the ones that we know the most about. They are present in the largest amounts, and they've been studied the most. Of the 2, it's THC that has the most brain effects. It's THC that gets you high. If you feel euphoric, or if you're unfortunate enough to have bad side effects like hallucinations, those are due to THC. So marijuana probably will get you high as long as it's got some THC in it. But CBD, on the other hand, doesn't have any of those brain effects. In fact, there have been studies using 300, 400, or 600 milligrams of CBD, which is really a whopping dose, with no psychological effects whatsoever. If it has effects, those are probably on the immune system and inflammation, although it may have some effects on neuropathic pain. So if you're using marijuana or marijuana products that are low in THC, then no, you won't get high. That includes most notably the concentrated oils that are used to treat pediatric seizures. Number 2, myth: all strains are created equally. There are definitely a wide differences between strains, most notably with respect to their concentrations of THC and CBD. There are also so many differences, and they can be so hard to keep track of, that actually many people advocate not paying attention so much to what the strain is, but instead asking the dispensary to make sure that whatever they sell is tested for THC and CBD concentrations. If you feel euphoric, or if you're unfortunate enough to have a bad side effects, those are due to THC. Dr. Casseret goes on to say, but there's another school of thought which also has some credibility. In my book, that says, sure, THC and CBD are the main ingredients of marijuana, but they're not the only ones. And there are dozens of other cannabinoids present in smaller amounts that may be effective too. So it's certainly possible you could have 2 different strains with equivalent amounts of THC and CBD, but which may have different effects due to other cannabinoids that are in them. The problem is we just don't know how much about those other cannabinoids and what they do. So, at least at first pass, looking at THC and CBD concentrations is a good way to go. Researchers are becoming interested in the possibility that a lot of the pain relief that you get from marijuana comes less from THC but more from CBD. However, most of the trials that I've seen for nausea use either THC or other synthetics that are not available for purchase through dispensaries. That doesn't mean that CBD is not effective, but it does seem that the evidence is pointing in the direction of THC. Number 3, myth: smoking marijuana causes severe lung damage. One risk that everybody I've spoken with thinks exists is the risk of lung damage. They say, of course, if you smoke a half a joint a day for years, you're going to end up with lung damage and emphysema like you do with smoking cigarettes. But it turns out that's not true. There have been a couple of very large controlled studies that have failed to find any long-term pulmonary effects in people who are smoking marijuana. There might be a few changes in lung function, but there really isn't any of the change that you see with chronic smoking. Number 4, myth. You can't get addicted to weed. On the flip side, a risk that many people don't think about that turns out to be a very real risk is the risk of dependence and addiction. I honestly didn't think that marijuana addiction was a real phenomenon, but at least not in the same way that addiction to cocaine and heroin or even nicotine is, but it turns out that it is. Myth. Smoking pot causes mental illness. Part of the reefer madness message in that marijuana use causes mental illness in general, and schizophrenia in particular. That's not so much a myth, but the truth is more complicated than I thought. I think the jury is still out on this, but what I gleaned from a fairly contradictory set of evidence and studies is that it doesn't seem that smoking marijuana causes schizophrenia. Well, that's it for this week's Wednesdays with Larajuana. Don't forget, Canawana Buy every week. Check them out for the greatest prices, great shipping, fast shipping, and incredible products. CanawanaBuy.com. Don't forget my weekly medical marijuana radio show. Every Saturday, a new show at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Go to mmjradio.com. That's it for this week. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love.